And welcome back to Beyond the Pendulum. This is episode 50. Hold on, let me do some self promotion because this is a live show. Sorry, it's been like another week hiatus between this show and the last one. Life happens. And I don't know. It's hard. It really is hard to balance out, especially life now. Post COVID and figuring, the stuff that comes with life and doing a podcast. And to be honest with you, I barely have time to do this, let alone edit this show professionally. I don't know. I know people that do that. When you do the some people like the professional aspect of the podcast, and I would love to do it that way, a little professional. But that's not my style. you know, um, Unfortunately, this is a very low budget, under $100, and this is what you get. You
You
know,
don't have a big studio?
no, 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 no. I always laugh at people that spend a couple $100 onto podcast equipment and get the nicest mic and whatever. And I've been doing this before podcasts were even huge. We've been doing this, God, almost 9 years now, somewhere around there. And
Man, was it 2016,
oh yeah, somewhere around there. And then
17? Yeah, that's
yeah,
man, it's
nobody,
adds up.
yeah, nobody had that kind of equipment back then. I mean, there were people that were doing it in studios, but they were not. They had big budgets or the enough buku dollars to get through the pay streams or whatever they needed to do. And here we are. We've been doing it below budget ever since. Anyway, I don't. There was a few things that had come up, and there was the program Immaculate Constellation, where Michael Schellenberger had gotten this information from a so-called whistleblower. There are people that are raising some red flags about the whole program or about Schellenberger, and there seems to be some mixed signals I am getting from people. The people that I thought were more open to the fact that there is more out there than they think, and that maybe their intelligence that they think that are solid and events that have happened are solid are not so accurate. And I think those kind of people are necessary, but you also kind of need to be frugal. And maybe the whistleblower who had given him all of these, there is documentation to go along with this whistleblower thing, because they are out there. And I believe George Knapp had come across this wild, never went forward with it. And apparently, okay, I forget what it was. I'm trying to remember in my head, because it was like a week ago. My memory's already shit. It was either there was like a centralized all domain monitoring system, centralized database, or it was the CIA Global Access. No, I'm thinking of the Liberation Times with the. I'm thinking of this was the centralized all domains monitoring system, and it seemed to be more elaborate than what the military is saying. And I don't understand why people who are not familiar with classification systems or the military stance on what is and what isn't, because they are legally allowed to lie. So let's just say that somebody in the military smacked you, and then they go, "Hey, I got proof. You smacked me, and it's on video." And they go, "There's no video, and I never smacked you." That kind of thing. It can be obvious, very la-di-da, but that seems to be the stance that they've had, and they will always have on everything like this, and they will not reveal anything until it's absolutely necessary that they have to reveal anything to you. And the whole Liberation Times with the CIA Global Access and working with the Department of Navy and doing these deep sea excavations retrieving USOs. I knew about that personally, and I had even heard about I even heard about this on an Art Bell show back in the '90s when the Navy thought that they were trying to retrieve a like a lost nuke because they had a nuclear symbol, and turned out to be a very old classic delta wing shaped UFO at the bottom of the ocean.
Hmm.
And everybody was surprised because they thought that they were everybody thought they were recovering nuclear materials. That's not what it was.
Hmm.
And it was so old that it had layers and layers and layers of soot all over it. So it'd been down there for a while. And
Yeah, I, I never thought about like crashed UFOs at the bottom of the ocean. That's kind of a new one. Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, it really does. I mean, if they are crashing and we're seeing them on land, well, that makes complete sense.
yeah, and this was back in the '90s, and they were talking about imaging technology that would look at the shape of a. They had the technology, portable technology back then, late '90s to some sort of machine that would be able to cross-reference the shape of a object and tell you what they think, what they have in their catalogs of what it is, and this kind of tech was available to them 30 years ago. So, and nothing, and the guy that was doing the excavation with the joystick arm and everything said that it wasn't matching anything they had seen ever before on any of the databases, and they made them sign NDAs, and they never from their COs never got any clarification what they said, and they all said, hey, if you ever bring this up, you're out of the Navy, you're out. Okay, it's classified, and they never spoke about it until they got out. So
Hmm. No.
the fact that this is new to some of the UFO community baffles me because stuff like this over the years has been all over the internet. Oh God, like even the driving range near Area 51, the Air Force base had accidentally leaked or had leaked a video of a flying UFO over their testing range before. Back in this was on Hardline or Dateline back in the '93 with the radar pings that were it was a really weird kind of camera where they were able to get live video with the radar ping all in the same thing. It was some sort of gun. It was some sort of gunning system that they had, but it was definitely giving a reflection that there was an object there, and this thing was defying the laws of nature. These things do exist, and the military has very good evidence. If not, they have it, but unfortunately, you're not in that club, and you're not approved to see that material. And I always find it fun, like baffling, when the UFO Twitter, they'll go and they'll argue amongst themselves and dig through papers. The guys who dig through the old stuff, like I give them props because that's where all the bread and the butter is. Like you dig through anything now and it's all leak. You have unless you're looking through independent stuff like the people have amateur videos, and even that's becoming harder to find with the advent of everybody and their mother being able to use AI video. But there is a lot of video, audio, and documentary evidence out there to prove to everybody that this shit is even real. You just have to dig for it. Unfortunately, they know that most people are not going to dig through a pile of papers that is not organized in any way, shape, or fashion other than their file names. This
I
back
mean,
in
I think what the problem is um, people don't really know, for whatever reason, they don't do research on the older shows. I mean, there's plenty. It's like since I mean, I think there's a old Walter Cronkite uh, from the '60s. Him
Hmm.
talking about UFOs. I mean,
Disney,
it's not
Disney,
like something new.
Disney even made a special of it and had some great, real, 8 millimeter films, amateur films of stuff out there. You can find it. You just really have to dig for it online now. It was back then. You had to just know a person who had the right access to the library or the VHS tape or wherever you were, and you could find this stuff. But the average Joe Schmo was not exposed to a lot of this. So I guess it's the retro UFO stuff is more obscure to the newer community, but not. But we all went through it. We saw it. We know it's there. I don't know what to tell people. Like there was the somebody tried to
Shit,
do deep.
well, like the old History Channel. I mean, there's UFO files. I mean,
Hmm.
there's probably hundreds of shows in
Hmm.
just that alone. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and
it's
un,
plenty.
un,
There's plenty out there. I mean,
and unfortunately, the really good stuff is not the stuff that makes it onto those shows. It's these older stories that you know are just out there. That there's tons of high resolution film footage and photos, and there's a lot of fake Polaroids out there. There's a lot of mishmash of everything, but the evidence is out there, and I'm here's another thing that's been going on. So I think I mentioned that the James Webb was detecting some sort of object that about 10 light years out that was moving erratically, and there was a classified meeting about it, and now that Congress, some members of Congress who were into this in the know that were supposed to know about it had a classified skiff meeting, and they didn't say no when questioned about it. They just denied it and said they couldn't comment on it. And now they're trying to change the narrative that there is no object that is 10 light years out there that the James Webb telescope had found. And I started posting about the star system Ron 154 and Ron, and there's another one that Ross within that range. And I started thinking I was going crazy when I was posting on X about it. And I was like, well, maybe I just typed too fast and whatever. But my posts about the star system had disappeared. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. But it was really fucking weird. Only, only there was a, how should I say this? And I got really excited about it. And people were saying it's bullshit. But there was a signal in 2019 called BLC-1, which was discovered by a non-directional, privately funded radio telescope searching for signs of radio chatter amongst the star systems. And there was one that was 4.2 light years away, coming from approximately Proxima C, and they had poo-pooed and said it was nothing. Well, lo and behold, the private investor that has dropped all the money on this is not a government institution. It happens to be Mark Zuckerberg, and the facility happens to be in the fucks nowhere, Canada. And they didn't stop. There was some really weird stuff about the signature, okay? The signal was recorded for 5 hours. The signal also had Doppler, the Doppler effect, which means it is a orbit. It is orbiting something. Okay, they can tell that from the splash pattern. They thought it was an FRB. It is not an FRB, and it is in a very weird range. The splash pattern is approximately between 700 megahertz and 982 megahertz, which is in the mid-range microwave band, and it's not really giving off a whole lot of sideband, which means that this is coming from a highly tuned transceiver. There's they're saying that they haven't been able to find the signal. So what? So what if you haven't found the signal again? Okay, whatever. But why hasn't anybody officially gone over to this. If you look at the if you there is audio affiliated with it, and I'm just saying that why hasn't anybody looked at this data file and put it through AI and see if they can extrapolate any kind of coding system or something, some sort, any information that can be taken out of this? And I'm assuming that it has. And there's been rumors that there are two teams out there that have been fighting for their academic papers to be smashed through about this signal. And there's when the news had come out of this about this online, I saw some really big names in the UFO community say it was all hogwash and a grift. Well, the guy who had put out the information video had less than 42,000 hits, and he is like a nobody sci-fi documentarian that probably would make 200, maybe a small amount of money on whatever the hell he's making. I've never heard of him. And the guy who poo-pooed him also had censored me in a UFO group before multiple times. I'm starting to think that, when you start having some real good evidence out there that we're not alone in our own backyard, people act irrationally. I'm sorry, but I know enough about radio. I know enough about if this is a whole bunch of bullshit, it is a well technically thought out bullshit signal because the SETI, who's not even part of this team, all right, had said that it was the atomic synchronizing system that was being detected onto the antenna array, and I go, well, why would you guys have a splash pattern that is obviously far out there on an it didn't really jive with me. And there was evidence that the signal was moving around, so it wasn't stationary. It was probably orbiting something out there. There's just too much evidence to say that this was not a natural FRB. This was not natural. Usually when you get powerful radio signals like this, they're usually on the all spectrum, or they're on the high or the low, and that has to do with the usually the way that the EM radiation is being produced, usually by something smashing or something exploding, or some sort of gravitational anomaly. But you know what I'm saying, Alamo? There's enough evidence in this case to say that we might not be alone in our own backyard.
Yeah,
18.
I don't. Well, I would agree with that. I mean, if you look at like the numbers of possible civilizations that exist, like just say in the Milky Way, you shouldn't have to go very far to find something. Not saying they're all like us, or going to be more advanced or less advanced, but there's probably another civilization very close. I want to say when I ran the numbers, it was like within 10 or 15 light years. On average, you shouldn't have to go very far to find something.
Yeah, I also had I was also part of ESETI, and I had a real big problem with the way that they were processing their data. They had supercomputers not actually listening to any of the audio signals that are out there. They just were just analyzing the data signals, and they were looking for a signature. I go, that's not how you sift through data.
Yeah, I took it that they were running it through, looking for patterns, and then that would, which you're naturally going to see. If it's any kind of signal, it's going to have some pattern to it that has to pop out at some point, and
And
that's kind of what they were looking for. I really
but the
don't know. I mean,
but the
I don't know what their
but
methodology is, but
but they but they but the their also their frequency range that they were looking for was very narrow. It was like
yeah,
I wasn't the only one who said something about this, because there's another technique that even Terrence McKenna was jiving about. The psychedelic PhD guy out there was talking about multi-frequency broadcasting, where you broadcast the same signal over a different, I mean, intentionally over a bunch of different frequencies, knowing that they might not all hit it, but eventually one will hit the target and be able to receive it. And they weren't looking for, so if they were detecting something on multi-frequency, they think it's not, oh, it's not natural, you know, this is a natural phenomenon. That's just, if you're not, if you don't have something that is actually listening in on the oscillations that are being out there, if you're just looking at the signal and the splash pattern, you're just, you're half-assing it. That's what SETI was doing.
it would be my hope that they at least, okay, you were at least recording all these signals, and then at some time in the future, when the supercomputers and all that come on, you could run all sorts of tests on them. I would hope they're at least doing that.
But that's
You
not
know,
what they were doing. What they were doing is that what was happening, and I heard this many times, is that SETI was losing funding and was getting real lazy. And to keep the program alive, they were doing narrower and narrower parameters to keep their grants alive, or to keep people on the staff. And then we're not doing multi-frequency listening. We're just going to do on the hydrogen band, because that's not going to require as much energy from the radio antenna. And I'm just like, oh my god,
yeah, it's
that's
well, like you
typical.
say, that's half-ass. It's
And ultimately, I've heard that SETI has had multiple wow signals over the years, and never really. Let's just say that if a little green man came and knocked on the door and said, "Take me to your leader," they would just close the door and say, "I don't want to deal with this." That's the kind of people that you've been dealing with, that are the ones looking for ET life.
yeah,
Unfortunately, I've seen what the head of the egghead at SETI had said, and she was giving very technical answers, but she had failed to explain how she came to that conclusion. Can you give me a reference of a carrier signal on these atomic clocks that are broadcasting in the cell phone range? Can you give me a techno signal? You know what I mean? Like, she was just very, just kind of like, oh, just trust me, bro. Like, like
yeah.
you're
I mean, there's they should be at least doing a multi-spectrum. Just because we can operate at so many gigahertz,
Mhm.
who knows what the signal is going to look like. It would be like if you're looking at Earth, what are you going to see? Early in the development, you're not going to see anything, and then you're going to see radio and TV. So if you're just searching at one band, even looking at us, you might miss it. There's because it's constantly been it's the emissions that we give out are constantly changing.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean, right there, that's your clue that you have to be looking at all kinds of different patterns. uh yeah, I mean, what else can you say? That's just, but
Well,
any repeatability, that's the main. Any signal is going to have some kind of repetition to it, and that's the big key to it all. I mean, there has to be, or else you can't decode it. It's
the angry astronomer, the YouTube guy that was the second guy to report on it. Because the first one, I was like, holy shit. Okay, well, maybe this is real. The second guy to talk about this was a real astronomer. Right? He could talk my language, and I was like, he came to the conclusion that this is real, and that the public is never going to know about it. That was his conclusion. I think he's right. I think he's
Yeah,
right.
and the other thing you're fighting on something like this is the number of people that can understand what you're saying. They don't, they may not be technical enough to even, you're talking signals and patterns and multi-spread and all this. They don't know what the fuck that is. They don't have
Yeah,
a clue, because they're dumb,
but Alamo,
and
you know what
they'll
I'm
never
talking.
understand it. They'll,
This is mid-range microwave band. It's totally artificial. You don't see that in nature. You see
oh yeah, You know,
And narrowband. It's narrowband. It's not full. There's not a whole lot of sideband going on. It's deliberate.
yeah, if that's true. Then that's a great candidate. I mean,
Oh well.
you know, the only other thing that I've heard about, like say SETI and using these radio telescopes and all, is that there's beyond about 400 or 450 light years, if I remember the number right, the the signals you could receive kind of start blending into the background. You know, there's kind of a limit to what you can pull out of this type of looking for things this way, because it starts to just blend into the background noise at
It's
certain distances.
it's possible, and then there are people who have deep space radio telescopes that are like searching around for the big, powerful EM pulses that are out there. But yeah, I think you're probably right, and there is another phenomenon that goes out that a lot of people are not keen to, that are radio experts here. But when you get into radio astronomy, it's different. You get into gravitational distortion of a radio signal can disrupt the signal drastically.
Mm.
But this was a good candidate. It's so close we could actually launch a probe, and within our lifetime, or maybe the next their children's children could see if there was something there. You know, it's only 4.2 light years away. That's literally in our own backyard.
It's it doesn't get much closer than that. It's well, that's the there's a lot of things we got to be doing. I mean, even if it was unmanned, we should be sending some kind of probe out like that. You know, you'd have a lot easier time getting something unmanned, up to the speeds you need. But we're like stuck. You know, we're like trying to decide if we should go to Mars or something. It's like, fuck, we ought to be way past that already.
Oh yeah, there's
I mean,
the survivability of a colony on the surface of Mars, and anybody will tell you that not if the environment won't kill you, the ionizing radiation from the sun will, because carbon dioxide is not a good filter, and there is not enough water in the atmosphere to.
How long does it take you to be there and get
absorb.
there?
There's no there's not much of a magnetic field there either. So you're now the way around that is to find a sinkhole, which there are quite a few that are great. There's some big sinkholes on Mars.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, certain shaded areas. I mean, there's ways you could do it. Same thing for the moon. I mean, it is
Yeah.
there's ice on
Well,
the moon.
yeah, I might have to cut this show a little short. We'll I'll continue on again. Sorry, I have to cut it a little short. Mm, not December 3rd. Oh, what is the next month? November 7th.
Remember? Yep.
All right. Elmo, I'll see you then.